Hey, BRCC. Welcome to today's Advent teaching on love. Let me start by asking, what's the Christian life look like for you? For most of us, a big part of the Christian life is looking back to Christ, where we consider his life, his teachings, and how we apply them. But Advent reminds us the Christian life is a life of looking forward as well. Advent is that period of the church calendar when Christians look expectantly to Christ's return. We're reminded we wait for his second coming when he will judge the world. But how are we to wait? Paul gives us a clue in his first letter to the Thessalonians. In chapter 1, verses 7 through 10, Paul writes, "And so you became a model to all the believers in Macedonia and Achaia. The Lord's message rang out from you not only in Macedonia and Achaia. Your faith in God has become known everywhere. Therefore, we do not need to say anything about it, for they themselves report what kind of reception you gave us. They tell how you turned to God from idols and serve the living and true God, and to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, Jesus, who rescues us from the coming wrath." Paul says, wrath is coming, but the Christian need not fear the judgment, because you already know the outcome. No, we wait confidently as those who love Christ and long to see him face to face. So what does that confident waiting look like? Do we just go about our business? Do we get a fun hobby that distracts us from the wait? Or do we watch the news, diligently looking for signs, finding clues in current events, worldwide pandemics, wars, and rumors of wars? And neither of those things describe the Bible's idea of waiting. We're not to be oblivious to the Lord's return, but we're not to be anxious about it either. Remember, just before he ascends in Acts 1, Jesus tells the disciples, "You will be my witnesses to the ends of the earth." That's how we're to wait. We're to witness by sharing Christ's gospel and by showing Christ's love. Paul describes the Thessalonians in verse 7 as a model. He says, their faith has become known everywhere. That didn't happen by accident. Paul tells us exactly how it happened just 4 verses earlier. In verse 3, Paul writes, "We remember before our God and Father your work produced by faith, your labor prompted by love, and your endurance inspired by hope in our Lord Jesus Christ." Other than the Trinity itself, this is Paul's big 3: faith, hope, love. Faith looks back to Christ's first coming. Here in verse 3, Paul says, faith produced works. Our hope looks forward to Christ's return. Paul says, hope brings endurance. And between the faith that looks back and the hope that looks forward, Paul says, this is our present situation: love. Paul is saying that because we can be confident in our salvation and expectant for the coming redemption of the cosmos, we're now free to love. And not just love as a passive thing without impact, but as a meaningfully active thing that produces blessing for us and for those around us. Paul says specifically the Thessalonians labor in love. Well, what is it to labor in love? Maybe you've written a great story or built your dream home or painted a beautiful landscape. And it didn't feel like labor at all because the love overwhelmed the labor. I pray, brothers and sisters, that's how you feel about your Christian life, that it's a labor of love. If you're unsure, then look again to the person of Christ, not the rules he teaches so much as how he loves you and what he gave up to win your love. But remember how he willingly drank the bitter cup of God's wrath so you would never have to. And remember that God raised him from the dead and that even now his Spirit is with you. It's guiding you. It's caring for you. It's guarding you. And he personally intercedes for you with the Father. And know that he's coming again, just as he promised he would, to lift you out of your pain, your suffering, and your heartache, and raise you to new life in a new heaven and on a new earth, where you will see him face to face and live eternally in his glorious love. That's Advent. It reminds us why we wait. It gives us the chance to see a fresh vision of our future with Christ. And it tells us that true Christian labor is a labor of love.
Sweet